Hey Greg, this is your streamlined VR model porting tutorial just for you and nobody else. So if anybody else is watching, you shouldn't be. Especially you, Kurt. Kurt, if you're watching this, I swear to fucking God, Kurt. Alright, now that we have that out of the way, the first thing you want to do is find a model. And in this case, we're going to do a Steam Workshop model because that's the type that we were struggling with before. But now we know how to do it. It's all fun. So first you want to go to, hey look, it's All Might from My Hero Academia for Source Filmmaker on the Steam Workshop. That's cool. Alright, all we need to do in that case is copy the URL for this file and then go to steamworkshopdownloader.com, which is a nifty little tool. Enter the URL, paste it in here, and you have a nifty little easy to use download link. So we're going to download that. Nope. Fuck. Well, that didn't work for some reason, and I'm too lazy to figure it out right now, so let's try Grommet instead from Urban Animations, Wallace and Grommet Sketches. Let's try that. How about that? Please? Yay, it works. Alright, we're doing Grommet. Let's save the file to, let's say, a convenient folder located on the desktop called, oh. Well, we can change that later. Let's save it there. So if we navigate to our Grommet folder, we can see that we have the file downloaded here. Let's extract it. And you come up with materials and models folders, which is pretty typical for these types of downloads. So first, in the models folder, you see if you go down here, you have the .mdl file. That's the actual model folder for Source Filmmaker that you'll need to convert. And you can convert that to a usable QC file, .qc, using a program called Crowbar. And you can see up here, we chose decompile. MDL input should be this folder here that contains the models. So you can just like drag that in and it'll change to that, and drag it into the output too, because we're just putting it in the same place, might as well. Make sure QC file is checked here and then decompile. And you see that the QC file appears here. So we're good with Crowbar. We're done with Crowbar. Now, if we go back to materials, you see that we have these .vmt files. Those are the texture files that we'll need to convert from source to usable for Unity. So we need a program called VTF-edit. We can go to Tools and convert the entire folder. Input folder should be the folder that contains those VMT files. So we're, yes. Output folder, again, we're doing the same thing. Doing the same thing. Make sure it's set to TGA, which is a high quality image file type, and then convert. So now we're done with the VTF edit. You can see that the new TGA files are in there. So that's all we needed to do to convert the source files to usable files. Next step is to open Blender. Now we're just going to click A twice and then delete. Get rid of this stuff that comes default. You'll see I have a few extra tabs here. It's because I've installed add-ons that allow me to import different file types, various file types, not native to Blender, into Blender. Because the normal ones are .fbx and .obj, but these add-ons allow me to import stuff like these .qc files. So what you need to do is get an add-on called Blender Source Tools, which you can download from this site. Save it somewhere, and then once you are back in Blender, go to File, User Preferences, go to Add-ons, install add-on from File, navigate to the zip folder of the Blender Source Tools, or the zip file of the Blender Source Tools, and then once you've installed that, just type source into the search here, and it'll come up with Import Export Blender Source Tools. Make sure that box is checked, and then save user settings. and then exit that. Now you can import these source engine files, including the one we want, which is QC. So let's do that. Now we've navigated back to our grommet folder, which contains the converted QC model. Let's import that. And you can notice right off the bat that he's freaking huge. He should be like this small, but he's huge. First things first, because we're going to be re-rigging this model with in Mixamo, we're going to first go over here to the skeleton and just delete that shit. So now it's just the mesh remaining. We're going to select the model here, go over to Tools tab, and then Scale and bring him way down. Way down. At a certain point, he'll like flip over. You don't want that. So just a little bit before that. And now you can see we have a regular size grommet model that we will further refine the size of in Unity itself. If there's like multiple meshes here, like if say Grommet's model was like his head, his body, his hands and feet and ears, like if they were all separate here, you could just go to you could just like select them all and hit Control J, and it would combine all of those meshes into one mesh, which is much easier. And obviously you can like use that to delete stuff if you don't need certain parts of a model. But for this one, it's just Grommet alone, his whole body. Up here, it says faces, 6,032. That's like the poly count. We want that to be below 20,000, which is the maximum for VRChat. So this model is actually pretty good in terms of poly count. But if you needed to make his poly count less, you could select Grommet, go to this little wrench icon, get rid of that, add modifier, decimate, and then drag this down, and you can see that Grommet is like disintegrating before our eyes. Holy shit. Yeah, he's turning into like a PlayStation 1 model, and then he's a triangle. But for this, and then you could just like go down to, and you see the faces up there are going down. And then once you're at a reasonable face amount without like destroying the integrity of the model, you would do apply. But in this case, we're fine. We're at 6,000, which is a reasonable amount, definitely. But because we're good with that, he's already in the T-pose, which is great for our purposes. We can go to File, Export, and .fbx, which is what we want for Mixamo. You might as well just save it into the same place. Export. So now Blender has exported that usable .fbx model. Next step is to go to the site Mixamo and go to Upload Character. And you're going to want to navigate to wherever you saved that .fbx file to. So this is Untitled. So let's just save it as Grommet. Open that. Or it takes a second. And Grommet's in here, and he's all facing forward and everything. You want to make sure he's facing forward. And he's all like in frame and everything. So next. Now we have a symmetrical like limb placement thing.
So you want to place the chin where the chin is. Wrists where the wrists are, approximately. Elbows where the elbows are, approximately. Like, just like a noodle arm dude. Whatever. Knees where the knees are. And groin where the groin is.
Next. And it'll take a couple, or a minute to like auto-rig this model. So now that it's done, you can hope that it moves like a normal goddamn humanoid. Obviously, Mixamo doesn't really work for non-humanoid models, so you have to find like other avenues for that. His eyes are kind of weird, but whatever. But this is fine. The limbs move and the head moves and everything. So next, and now he's loaded in. Download. Yeah, .fbx, make sure that's good. Download. And then save it to that same folder. I prefer to save all my Mixamode models as the name and reboned, but that's just me. Just make sure I try to make it distinct from that original .fbx file. So now that we've done that, we're ready to move on to Unity itself. So once you're in Unity, you want to select a new project. Let's name it Grommet. Make sure it's wherever you want it to go. 3D, yeah, create project. So now we're in Unity. First things first, you can just get rid of this camera. Select it and delete it. Next thing is we want to open wherever you have your VRChat SDK. Move that into assets here. Take a second, and then import. Wait for it to do the import. It might take like forever, but then you have the VRC SDK thing in the assets. Go up to the VRChat SDK tab thing. Show build control panel. Wait for this for a second. Obviously, make sure you're logged into the VRC or the VRChat SDK through VRChat credentials. And then you can move this down to console where I prefer it. Go back to project. We're going to want to go back to where that reboned mixamo.fbx file is. Bring that shit in there. Then what I like to do is make a little folder here, create folder, says, why am I doing this? Textures, and then select whatever textures they have and put them all in that folder, just so they're all contained in one place. So now that you've done that, you have the model and the textures in there. We're going to click on Grommet Reboned, inspector, make sure rig is selected, change this from generic to humanoid, configure. You can save your shit, you can save your changes to wherever. Change the upper chest to none and chest to spine 2. I always do that. People recommend that. That's good. Now we can move Grommet into this pane over here, and he'll enter the world. But he's still pretty big, I'm thinking. So we're going to go to VRC SDK folder, examples, scenes, and then use the second example A, drag that over to this pane. And yeah, you can see that this model, this default model, is like way smaller, or Grommet is way bigger. And this model is like 6 feet tall, so we need Grommet to be quite smaller. The way we're going to do that is going to scale over here, X, Y, and Z, bring these down to like something more reasonable. Grommet as a character is kind of short, but you know, for these purposes, it doesn't need to be like tiny. Just, you know, yeah. So that's good. So now we can remove the scene of the example avatar. Go back to assets. Select Grommet again. Click Add Component. VRC Avatar Descriptor. Now this view position thing, XYZ, is going to be where you can see that little gray dot. It's going to be where your viewpoint is on your model. So let's go to a side profile view. Click this to get like a whatever that's called. You can see it's up here near the ears. We're going to want to bring that down. First, let's change the Z to a little bit further out. And then we're going to change the Y to something lower. Let's say to 5. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And we want to be able to, if it was like right here, you would look down and see Grommet's nose. So you want to make sure that it's beyond any part of the model so that you can see like down to the ground. So that's actually a pretty good spot. Make sure it's like centered, you know. Obviously you can do this. See that it's right in the middle of his eyes. That's great. Yeah. So now we can go to actually materials. And looks like in this model's case, we have the texture for his body and the texture for his eyes. And you can see that one is blue and green. Sometimes they're random colors, but let's select the body material first. And we can see that opened this panel over here. Go to textures. Looks like this is the body texture. I'm gonna drag that over to albedo. Make sure that this color is not actually a color. Make sure it's just white, and that'll like reveal the real color for the texture. Make sure the smoothness is all the way down unless you want it to be weirdly shiny. You can also, sometimes they'll come in like transparent, and you want to make sure the rendering mode is opaque instead of transparent. Sometimes it'll come in like weird. Make sure it's opaque. And in this case, this model does have a normal map for these textures, so let's just do that because we can. And if it says the texture is not marked as normal map, fix now, and it'll be good. So let's see. That doesn't really seem to change it at all, but I don't know enough. Anyway, let's go to materials. Let's click the eyes this time. Back to textures. Make sure the eye textures is set in albedo. Make sure it's set to white. Smooth this all the way down. Let's put the normal map on there just for fun. Fix now. And now Gromit's looking Gromity, you know? His ears are sticking straight up. I just realized that. I don't know how to change that without the skeleton from the original the original skeleton that this model came with. I just realized that it's going to be weird. What you could do is in Blender with the skeleton still there, you could move the bones for the ears into like their normal floppy position. That would probably be the way to do it. You would want to move the skeleton for the ears down in Blender, and then like fix that in place for the mesh itself, and then delete the skeleton. So you'd have the ears in the right place for the model, but no skeleton. So that's what you'd want to do. But for this purpose, I'm not going to mess with that right now. But that's it. You have the textures on. You have the viewpoint in the right place. You have the scale to the right scale. All you need to do now is VRChat. Let's look down here. The only error type thing is the avatar is short, which is fine because that's what we want. We can see the polygon 6,000. That's great. Build and publish. And it'll take a minute to do this. Eventually it'll pop up with this. Let's name our avatar Gromit. I'm going to name it Gromit ears to remind myself that this is the Gromit model with weird ears in case I ever want to change it. You can add a description if you want. Gromit with the ears standing straight up like an idiot. Now this preview image over here, you want to make sure that upload image is checked so you can upload a new image. Go to scene. This camera, you can move this camera down, away, whatever, to get him in frame. Go over here. You can choose skybox if you want. I tend to do solid color, change the solid color to black. That's just the way I do it because I like it that way. You can do it however you want, and then go back to game, check this, and upload. And this is going to upload it straight to your VRChat account from here. Now it's almost done. Okay, it's good. So now you can go into VRChat and check it out for yourself. Move around a bit in front of a mirror to make sure it looks good. Greg, I know you knew some of this stuff from when we did this before, but just putting it on the record so you can reference this video at any time. Again, make sure no one else sees this, because that would be just catastrophic for me and for everyone. Kurt. Yeah, you know. Alright, bye. Oh yeah, one final thing is if you go to VRChat SDK, you can go to Manage Uploaded Content, and you'll see all the avatars that you have, and you can delete them from here if you want. So that's cool.